In this video, we'll talk about the principle of rhythm. Uh, I've been calling it rhythm. A better way to describe it is rhythm and movement. It's a little bit more all-inclusive of what we're trying to do. So let's take a look at this image by Armin Hoffman, great Swiss designer. This was made in 1965, and these are just vertical lines with some breaks. And you can see there's a really nice sense of motion from going from left to right. And the image on its own is, to me, very beautiful. You make some really, really nice stuff just with these very simple lines in black and white. So the image on the left it's static. There's some motion there, but not a lot. But it's very static. And the image on the right, there is definitely a left to right flow. Okay, so what? Well, a big thing that we want to do as designers is direct the viewer's eye. And that's whether you're a fine artist or a graphic designer, being able to direct where you want the viewer to look and what you want to emphasize in the focal points, that's a big deal. So getting a handle on how to establish a sense of rhythm and movement in your work will help with that. Plus, your work is more interesting. We want to have dynamic work that has some visual interest, right? So in rhythm and imparting rhythm and movement to your work is a big part of that. Here again is another left to right, foreground to back. On the right side there, the going from the heavy line to the very, very small line on the far right gives it an illusion that it's going from the foreground to the background. Diagonals generally impart motion and a dramatic sense and some dynamic sense to the composition. A general rule that strong horizontals, as shown on the left, will make the composition look very stable and still, and that's not a bad thing. A lot of times you want a very stable, very calm and peaceful composition. That's wonderful. Just think of a sunset on the ocean, right? That's a lot of horizontal lines there. Very calm, very peaceful. Diagonals will impart motion. Now, if that's your goal, you want to impart motion, put in diagonals. Again, here's another Armin Hoffman work. Very simple, and I think this is a beautiful image. It's just really small rectangles, really piled up on top of each other. So look at the type going at a diagonal. The images of the cars are at a diagonal. So everything, of course, this is about a race, So you want things moving and exciting and dynamic, and that this is successfully doing that. This a more gentle sense of motion going on here. There's a nice contrast here. There's a big kind of white frame going around this, and the type is very light and just kind of flowing into the back from foreground to background. So a really nice gentle sense of motion imparted here with this composition. And it doesn't, when you say rhythm and movement, it doesn't have to be you don't have to hit the viewer over the head. This is really, really a nice composition. And everything is very stable and still. This person is just kneeling on the floor contemplating these prints. But since it's at an angle, the rug is at an angle, and the person's lined up with the rug, there's a really nice sense of just a peaceful quality to it, but a sense of motion and visual interest. And repetition and pattern. A lot of principles of design systems, they have repetition and pattern as a separate principle. I think repetition and pattern belongs with rhythm and movement. So I mean, there's lots of motion in this poster from 1966 here, and it's achieved by repeated lines and repeated shapes. And again, another example of repetition and pattern, imparting like this a more dynamic sense of motion to it, especially the background, the horizontals going up. Now check this out. I mean, we got horizontals, right? But still, the way they flow from, from either, it's a subjective guess. I mean, you could say that the clouds are going from top to bottom or bottom to top, but I think it's going from bottom to top because the mountain is pointing up. So there's a lot of dynamic motion going on here. That's very cool. Type can be used as a design element and should be used as a design element. Typography is a huge deal with the discipline you're getting into. And you can see there's this nice gentle flow, like almost like water going from top to bottom just by using only typography. Nice balanced composition and really nice sense of movement. And this is a little bit more aggressive. The sense of motion is being imparted by the different sizes of the type. You can almost hear it in your head almost, like the word dub would be very much emphasized, far out in dub space. That's really interesting. Like there's a rhythm to the words to it. There's a sound being imparted here almost. And again, don't hit the viewer over the head all the time. I mean, sometimes you want like a really in-your-face dynamic composition, like for maybe like a sports event or something like that. But this is, very subtle, really nice sense of motion just with these arcs, and it's a typography magazine, by the way. And again, just like by placing some elements at a slight angle, it really gives it a lot of visual interest. These are two guys from Russia, 1915 on the left by Malevich, and 1922 on the right by Alazitsky. And just by that red square being at a tilt, it imparts a sense of motion. So the takeaway here is some very, very small adjustment can give your compositions and work more visual interest and a sense of dynamic motion just with some very simple adjustments. And remember, some compositions need to be static. So we got Greenpeace magazine. We got 3 horizontal elements: green, piece, and magazine, right? And that's what they wanted. They didn't want stuff jumping off the page or scaring people or getting people all fired up and excited. They just wanted this nice calm thing. And then likewise, there's a print firm ad on the right. And, there's a sense of stability and solidness, So like, we don't want people getting excited. We want people to come to be trustworthy, to trust what we're doing here. So we're going to just make this nice, stable, calm composition. So not every composition has motion to it. Some compositions need to be static. So anyway, keeping in mind the principles of rhythm and movement and how to impart rhythm and movement into your compositions will give you a lot of options. Not the least of which is directing the viewer's eye, but also in general it increases visual interest.